Hi, everyone. So today is a little bit of a different topic. And what sprung me on this topic was I literally have gotten three different test results this week that had the exact same thing on it. Or, I mean, not the exact same thing as in total, but had this one same common pathogen on it. So, that being said, have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, eating healthy, taking supplements, but your bloating, reflux, or nausea just is not going away? Or maybe you wake up tired every day, your stomach burns, and you just assume it's just stress. Or in some cases, for us women out there, part of perimenopause. It seems like we blame everything on perimenopause these days. What if it's something deeper like H. pylori? And today, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. For those of y'all tuning in, I am April Blackford. I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and I help women who are tired of guessing and want real answers for their gut and hormone health. So, first, let's start with what is H. pylori? So, H. pylori is a sneaky helix shaped bacteria that lives in the lining of your stomach. And most people don't know that they have it. But in some people, it can cause a lot of issues. Now, H. pylori is usually the abbreviated name, but the actual scientific name is Helicobacter pylori. But in the functional world, we just call it H. pylori. Um, Now, why is it sneaky? It's sneaky because it hides in the mucus layer of your stomach where your immune system can't easily reach it. Also, it can survive stomach acid, and even when reduced over time, it can thrive. So if you already have an issue with the lower stomach acid, then that in turn kind of leads to bigger issues. So, easy way to describe it, you want to imagine your stomach is like a fortress. Stomach acid is the moat around the fortress and it keeps the invaders out. But H. pylori slips past the moat and actually drains the moat, which makes it easier for all the bad guys to get in. Um, Now, how do you get H. pylori? H. pylori is actually extremely common. Over 50% of people worldwide have it and don't even know it. It can be spread through contaminated food or water, sharing utensils or cups, kissing or close contact. So basically through saliva and fecal contact. Um, and it can actually live in your gut for years without causing obvious symptoms for some people. So just because you've never had food poisoning, which that's kind of a common occurrence, doesn't mean you're in the clear. Now, what are some of the symptoms of H. pylori? So, the tricky thing about H. pylori is the symptoms are often brushed off or diagnosed. So, some of the most common symptoms are bloating, especially after meals. Acid reflux is a big one because if y'all have tuned into any of my videos, you'll know that there is a common connection to a lot of times acid reflux is a lot of times it's not just it's you assume that it's you have an issue with too much acid, but a lot of times it's actually you're lacking stomach acid. So acid reflux, nausea, especially in the morning or on an empty stomach. So if your stomach it just feels unsettled whenever it's empty, that's another sign, or even pain in the stomach. Burning sensation in the stomach or chest, belching or bad breath, assuming that you brush your teeth and floss, feeling full after just a few bites of food, unexplained fatigue, low iron or B12 on your labs, even with added supplementation. And then, of course, you always have the constipation or diarrhea that kind of will overlap on a lot of symptoms. Anxiety or mood swings. Yes, gut bugs can actually mess with your brain too. Let's don't forget there is a gut brain axis connection. So, for those of you listening in perimenopause, you might think that these are just hormone symptoms because a lot of them are kind of overlap to hormone symptoms. Many of my clients who struggle with both hormones and digestion actually have H. pylori, especially when there's a common theme of when stress has been high for years. So, now why does H. pylori matter? H. pylori is not just about belly aches. It actually can affect your whole body. So here's some of the things that it does. It reduces stomach acid, so you can't properly break down food, especially in this case, especially protein, which is essential, very, very important. It weakens the stomach lining, which in turn increases the risk of ulcers or inflammation. There are studies H. pylori can be a predisposer to ulcers and or stomach cancer. It blocks nutrient absorption like B12, iron, zinc, magnesium, all the essential nutrients that support energy production, our thyroid, and support our hormones. It can throw off the whole entire gut microbiome with more bloating, food sensitivities, and leaky gut, which that's kind of the street term or layman term. That's gut permeability. It can weaken the immune system, which creates a higher risk for more infections. And it can contribute to hormonal chaos by stressing your adrenal system and depleting nutrients that are needed for hormone production. So, imagine I always like giving these analogies for those of y'all that just, like it's just too much information to, to take in. So imagine it's like having a broken foundation in your house. You can paint the walls, aka take supplements, but until you actually fix the foundation, and in this case, we're talking about the gut, then nothing's really going to change. Now, let's talk about traditional versus functional treatment for H. pylori. So, the conventional medicine approach will typically include triple or quadruple antibiotic therapy, which could actually be pretty harsh for some people. Um, it can be problematic if someone, from what I've seen, if someone already is lacking the good microbiome in the gut, so like the good bacteria, if they're low in good bacteria and they do the hardcore triple or quadruple antibiotic therapy, that can kind of just rock the boat and cause a lot of chaos. This will usually include acid blockers, which can make healing harder long term. Now, the pros of this are it can work, especially in emergencies, but the cons are it does not support gut repair, it doesn't prevent reinfection, and it can wreck the gut microbiome, which in turn causes more symptoms later. Now, remember, go back in the beginning where I talked about how you can transmit it, so you can get it through saliva and fecal contamination. So, for example, if you have it, so if you're infected by it and you have a partner, if your partner also has it and they don't treat, then you're just going to kind of pass it back and forth each other. So that's kind of some of the problem with the conventional therapy route. Now, in comparison to the functional root cause approach. So, in a functional approach, we do things a little bit differently. We don't just kill, we also heal. You like that? The first step of that puzzle would be test and not guess. So, I tend to use the GI map or similar comprehensive stool testing, not only checking for H. pylori, but also other gut imbalances like candida, parasites, etc. Because just eradicating H. pylori and not taking care of those other bugs can still leave a very problematic terrain and atmosphere within the gut. Now, the second step would be to build before we kill. So we want to support stomach acid, support digestive enzymes, and the liver, very, very important, before diving into any clearing protocols. You want to make sure the liver is kind of ready to take on a big detox purge like that. The third step would be a targeted herbal approach. So the targeted herbal approach can be more gentle than antibiotics and highly effective, typically using herbs like mastic gum, DGL, which is D. Wait a minute, deglyher. I cannot pronounce it today. Deglycerated licorice. I think that sounded absolutely horrible. Berberine, zinc carnosine, and sometimes oregano oil in some cases. Now, the fourth step is to support and soothe the gut lining. So you want to kind of protect and soothe the gut lining because it can be inflamed for some people with herbs like L-glutamine, aloe vera, slippery elm, and collagen. Collagen actually has a wide variety of uses. So the fifth step would be to rebuild the microbiome with probiotics, prebiotic foods, a low inflammatory diet. So in this case, you want to temporarily remove sugar, alcohol, gluten, dairy, and any acid. So you don't want to add any acid to the stomach or the environment when this is present. So lastly, you can retest if needed after you go through the steps just to ensure that it's really gone and that your gut's healing. So one size never fits all. Everyone deserves a plan that works for your body, not against it. So that's important. And keep in mind, what works for me may not necessarily work for you, and vice versa. So, I tell a little story. One of my clients came to me. She came with constant bloating, fatigue, mood swings. She thought that it was all perimenopause and stress. When we ran her GI map, we found H. pylori, low stomach acid, and quite a few other gut bugs. Within 6 to 8 weeks of her protocol, she was just like she felt like magic had happened. She was eating without bloating, her energy was up, and her anxiety was gone. There was no more guessing and just answers. No. So, how do you know if you might have it? If you've been struggling with ongoing gut issues, low energy, reflux, or food sensitivities, and no one's ever mentioned H. pylori, it might be time to dig a little bit deeper. So it's not always about doing more, it's about doing the right things in the right order. You don't have to figure this out alone. So if any of this resonated with you, I invite you to book a discovery call with me. We'll chat about what's going on and if functional testing and personalized coaching is a good next step for you. So that's it for today. Hopefully this was helpful. If you know someone who can benefit from this video, please take a moment and share it. And if you're watching the replay, comment replay and drop your questions, as I always will circle back. And until next time, stop chasing symptoms and start uncovering the root cause. That's where real healing begins.